Hi, I'm Rosie Robison,
And I'm Chris Foulds.
and we are based at the Global Sustainability Institute at Anglia Ruskin University in the UK. And together we co-lead the Shape Energy platform. And today we're going to be talking about how you can create value from the social sciences and humanities in energy technology projects. And this is part of wider Shape Energy presentation packs aimed at outlining key resources from the Shape Energy platform for particular purposes. So who's this webinar for? It's for anybody, but we've particularly designed it with those working in energy business or industry in mind, as well as those working in research projects which have a particular technical focus. And that also includes those who are perhaps involved within the European technology and innovation platforms, which have a particular focus on supporting specific low carbon energy technologies for achieving European energy goals. And we've just put up here a number of these groups who have engaged with the platform over the past couple of years, have followed project activities or attended activities, or indeed who we have interviewed as part of our work. So a quick overview of what this webinar is going to cover. We're firstly going to actually explain, well, what are the energy-related social science and humanities, and why might they be useful for you or your organisation if you are working in an energy technology focused project. We're going to explain what the Shape Energy platform is, and we're then going to highlight 4 key resources from the Shape Energy platform, which we feel may be useful for your projects. And finally, we're going to end with the Shape Energy Research and Innovation Agenda, which is an action-based set of principles, which is coming out at the end of the Shape Energy platform, aimed at helping support energy-SSH in having an impactful role over the next decade. We have 3 key messages really from this webinar, which we're hoping to illustrate. The first is really the idea, as from the title of the webinar, that the social sciences and humanities can add real value to technical energy projects. This is being recognised and being implemented at a wide scale across Europe. The second is that if this is something that you want to do more of, there are resources available to help you include the social within your technical projects, and we're going to highlight a few of those. And finally, if you're considering trying to achieve social impact with your projects or with your funding proposals, then it's really important to consider how you are going to include considerations of social science and humanities early on when designing those projects or funding proposals. And that's something we would really recommend.
So now I'm just going to run through a little bit more what energy-SSH is, and it's certainly worth acknowledging from the start that the social sciences on energy and the humanities on energy are distinct, and they do offer different sorts of questions and insights for those wanting to engage with energy-SSH. So firstly, the social sciences. Well, it would often include things such as psychology, sociology, and the other disciplines up here. It's worth pointing out that economics sometimes is a bit disputed by both economists and other social scientists. But the thing that all of these do have in common are they're interested in what shapes how humans interact with the energy system. So either as individuals or communities. How do they act on a day-to-day basis, and what does that mean for engagement with the energy system? So they're interested in sort of the influences that underlie that, whether it be social norms or values, perceptions, beliefs, institutions that organize and surround them. Lots of different influences can shape them. So from studying the social sciences, you'd be able to get a handle on how human action, for instance using technologies, could potentially be moved to more desirable ends. On the humanities side of things, including the disciplines and subjects up on the screen here, they sort of put the spotlight on what we would say are the taken for granted priorities of society, almost the higher order sort of issues in terms of equity, fairness, duty, morality. So it's not here about action and necessarily what we do, it's inevitably related to what we do, but it's more questioning around what is right, what do we want from the world, what has the experience of the world and of its various societies been over the last few centuries and going forward? What does that mean for the energy system? And then, so if the social sciences are trying to take us somewhere or provide us lessons to go somewhere, then the humanities are questioning, well, where do we want to go? What are the impacts that we would want from a future sustainable low carbon energy system?
So why is all this relevant in terms of, if you're interested in energy technologies? Well, I suppose perhaps it's obvious that energy is a people problem. We need energy to service the needs of society, of business, of how society functions. So it makes sense to bring people back into the equation. And SSH puts people front and center within the questions it asks, and then the answers and solutions that it brings to answering those questions.
Some examples of the sorts of insights that SSH could provide for those working on energy technologies. Well, it could help provide assessments of lived experiences of new technologies. So then there's more realistic expectations from those involved in rolling those technologies out. They, as a result, could provide some explanations for how there's sometimes a bit of a gap between what's expected and what actually happens, for instance, in terms of energy performance and estimated, for instance, carbon emission reductions. But more broadly, I think SSH provides a tool and a suite of methods around how to engage with societies and allow them to participate in decision making potentially. So this is perhaps particularly obvious for contentious issues, carbon capture and storage, nuclear, siting of wind turbines. Obviously, we're wanting to engage with how people perceive the risk and engage with the issue fundamentally, but also around maybe using SSH to involve communities to say what they actually want from the future. What are the priorities? Bring them in to make the decisions, as opposed to using SSH as a tool to convince them of the decision that's already been predetermined. So all of this has hopefully demonstrated to you all that there's a need for more on SSH, and Shape Energy has helped to fill that void in many ways. So over the last 2 years, we have run a number of activities, both with those working in these SSH disciplines on energy, and also with those who may actually be interested in using and applying that energy. So we're trying to create a bit of a bridge between the two sets of communities. We've created a number of resources. Do check out our website. We're very keen on making things as open and freely and publicly available as possible. We'll have around 27, maybe even 30 reports by the end of it. There'll be a number of videos, and also there's numerous blogs and news items there that do keep everyone up to date on what we've been up to. So we're now just going to turn our attention to 4 key Shape Energy resources, which may be particularly of interest to those working on energy technologies. Firstly, there's a researcher database. So the starting point for this was that the energy-SSH communities are often fragmented, and that there's a lot of difference between different groups and different disciplines working on the same problems. So we wanted to create a database of around 600 in the end. We've got colleagues working in Horizon 2020 eligible countries on energy-SSH, and it's been great that it's already been picked up by the Commission and by lots of those bidding for Horizon 2020 energy project money. You're able to search for it dynamically through the countries, through the disciplines, through free text to do with those people's energy research interests.
We've also produced a sandpit report. This was 4 events that we ran in February of 2018. And the purpose here was to bring together the coordinators and key partners involved in current energy and transport Horizon 2020 projects, most of which were quite technological, but that was certainly intentional because we wanted to engage them in a conversation around what they would think SSH could offer them, what they think SSH is, and just sort of create a dialogue around some next steps that they could take in future projects or within their current projects. So a few things came out from this. Firstly, we found that, as I mentioned earlier, that SSH methods can be really useful in bringing communities together, actually facilitating things. So we use storytelling methods to do this. It was also apparent that there are particular views on ways that SSH could and should feed into technological led agendas. And this is something that I think would certainly want to be talked about more from those on working in energy-SSH. I think they'd perhaps feel that they could offer even more than what the default assumptions were by those who are new to energy-SSH. So yeah, certainly that there's a lot of conversations that can be had, and it's good to start those conversations early. But there was certainly acknowledgement by the end that SSH seemed to be relevant, important, and made sense.
So the third resource that we've highlighted is our annotated bibliographies. This was a set of 4 resources that were produced early on in the project, and they covered our 4 key energy topics, which, as you can see, cover different areas of energy technologies. So depending on your area of interest, you may find that one or more of these is particularly of relevance to your work. These were energy efficiency and using less, competitive, secure, low carbon energy supply, energy system optimization and smart technologies, and then transport sector decarbonisation. And essentially, an annotated bibliography is a way that we were able to open up some of the academic research that's going on in these areas, because often this work is inaccessible to those who are outside of academia. For example, you don't necessarily have journal paper access. So an annotated bibliography, there was the title of each paper and then a short paragraph describing what that paper was looking at, perhaps the methods involved, and then some of the key findings. And you'll see that a very large number of papers were included in each of these resources. And that was obviously cut down from a much larger sort of long list for each area, and really showcases the huge amount of work that is going on in energy-SSH at the moment. These will be useful resources to give you a flavour of, as Chris was mentioning earlier, what different disciplines may be bringing to particular areas, particular energy challenges, ideas of key authors, and also, of course, some of the key findings from that research. Each of the bibliographies includes a 1-page executive summary, which includes some of what was found, and that also mentions some of the gaps that were found, so areas that were perhaps under-researched within energy-SSH. So we did find that some modes of transport, for example, receive an awful lot more attention than others when it comes to energy-SSH research, even though the carbon impact may be large. For example, freight travel, there was much less work available. There's also an infographic available about the annotated bibliographies, again a way for you to get a quick snapshot of some of the key findings from them if you would like to. And then fourthly, we're highlighting our city workshop report. Our set of 17 workshops was a large programme that ran throughout 2018 and 2017, which involved running local workshops across countries, bringing together policymakers, businesses, citizen groups. So in many cases, these were collaborations with the local authorities in that city. They covered a wide range of energy topics, each chosen because they were of specific interest to that city or region. And this included, for example, energy efficiency in buildings, district heating schemes, fuel poverty, and also the production of strategy visions for regions, perhaps for the next 10 years, the next 20 years, so forth. There's a huge amount of detail in the report. You can find detail about each of the 17 workshops, what was discussed, what was found, some of the key social science and humanities insights that came up, and the areas that those attending identified as wanting social science and humanities research to support them in. But just to pull out a few key examples of things that people found really valuable to discuss, things around designing new business models within cities, which could help support energy transitions, looking at interactions between different groups that could be between consumers and organisations or between different organisations, and generally collaboration processes and how to get those to work effectively at city level was a key area of discussion, which obviously social science and humanities research can offer a lot of great insights into. So we're now going to conclude the webinar just by highlighting one of the final outputs of the platform, which is our research and innovation agenda. This is a set of 7 principles which we have put together based on findings from across the whole suite of activities from the platform. And we've particularly aimed it at looking at future framework programs like Horizon Europe. But it's of relevance for anybody looking to design projects which include a social component. And essentially, these are 7 principles to help funders, researchers, those working within projects to include energy-SSH in more meaningful ways and achieve greater impact with their projects. We mentioned at the beginning about including energy-SSH early when you're thinking about project proposals. And for example, we are recommending that energy-SSH comes in just not into the concept of projects, the actual questions being asked, not just as an add-on in terms of evaluation of the project or trying to achieve greater impact at the very end. But if you want to include it in meaningful ways, think about it from the start. We'd really invite you to have a look at these 7 principles and of course to sign up to support them. And finally, we'd just like to emphasise that the Shape Energy platform has worked to bring together a number of other groups that are very active in this area. We've talked about, obviously, resources that we've produced, but there are a lot of resources being produced by others, and we've just flagged up a few on this slide. There are energy-SSH-led projects funded through the Horizon 2020 scheme each year. There are also SSH-flagged projects, which may be technology projects, but where the social is seen as a very important component. There are disciplinary networks and journals, and as well as the Shape Energy platform, there will be an energy-SSH forum funded from 2019. So we hope that we've demonstrated the key messages and illustrated these well in this webinar. If you would like to find out more, we would very much encourage you to visit the Shape Energy website. And of course, you're very welcome to email either of us at any time about any of this work. Thank you very much for your attention.